Now we're going to start with the presentation now of the agenda for today's lesson. Now, first of all, I will tell you something about the grammar materials that are available for you and accessible on our YouTube channel. Now, you can go to our YouTube channel and actually the same channel where I post these videos and actually browse through the playlists. On the other playlists, you can actually see the videos regarding English tenses that you can browse through and watch. Now also on the Czasy Angielskie website, it's possible to navigate to the Testy tab where you can download some of these tests and then rewatch the test videos. So I promised you some time ago that I will show you some English tenses, and I didn't deliver the paper tests to you, but these are the same tests, so you can actually download them and learn a lot of English grammar. This is, if you watch several of these tests, you can actually really learn a lot when it comes to grammar and when it comes to solving English grammar tests, if you have never done that. So that was point number one, and I would also like to remind you about the task list that you can see on our website. Now on our website you actually have these sort of dated lists. There are dates with the task that you need to do, and later on I will be filling them in with the materials that you've sent me. There's a lot of people that are actually sending the materials, and there's still some people who haven't been sending anything. So in time I will be filling in those checklists so that I will have an overview of the progress that you're making. And just a reminder, this is not a joke. You actually need to send me these things if you want to get a credit. If you will not send the assigned materials, you will get bad grades, and if you get enough bad grades, I will not give you credit at the end of the class. Now, so that's the overview and the organizational things. I've already told you about tests, so you know how the tests are going to happen. Now, there's the website that I showed you a second ago has very detailed and simple guidelines as to what you need to do. So if you have still some further questions, you can just write me an email. Now, there is the vocabulary exercise. In this section of our short video, I will tell you about the necessity to do the assignments when it comes to vocabulary. That's the book that's available for you. You can borrow it, download it, obtain it in whatever way you think is suitable, and do the exercises. Now, this week's portion of our exercises, as you probably can recognize, all the green stuff, these are the exercises we've already covered. The red ones are the ones that are assigned for you this time. So the next test will probably feature this section and maybe something more. Now another task will be for you to read the article. The article is here, just to show you. It's this article. You have the link in the syllabus, and the syllabus, of course, as you probably know, can be downloaded from our website. So that's another article, and there will be a task related to this article. So make sure to complete the task. Okay, so the next assignment when it comes to our syllabus is reading the article, completing the task that you will find on our website, and learning the vocabulary items that are in these chapters from 46 to 72. So the story number one that we're going to discuss and listen to some analysis is about the phenomenon called a higher education bubble. Now, what our higher education bubble is the fact that in the United States, people have to spend crazy amount of money to actually go to college. Now, this is far more than compared to what we have to pay here in Poland, even at private universities. So the first movie starts with an introduction of the topic of higher education in the United States. There's a comparison of education to the cost of education and their increase to the financial crisis, when the houses were rising in prices very rapidly. And now, and also the author will be talking about the fact that everybody wants their kids to go to college. However, the costs of education are increasing by at a rate of about 7.4% a year, which is a lot, far more than inflation. And as some say, since the 80s, the prices of education have grown 3 times or 4 times. So you have to pay 3 times more money than you did, or 4 times more money than you did in the 80s, whereas the education you're getting is pretty much the same. And the perspectives you're getting are also pretty much the same. So it's disproportionate, and many parents believe that you actually have to go to college and it's still worth its money. And then we are presented with a student who studied women's studies and religion and and got heavily in debt. She's about $100,000 in debt, which is a lot of money. If you multiply that by 4, it's almost $500,000 Polish zlotys. It's a lot of money for education that doesn't really offer much job prospects. So she has to pay $700 a month and earns $2,300. So she doesn't really have much left after that. And also there is information that private schools cost about $60,000 a year and public schools cost about $30,000 a year. So if you want to go to private school, which is something that many people want to do, it costs a lot of money per year to even have a chance to go through a 4-year college. So this will be the first part, and I want us to listen to this first part of the video.
The buyers think that what they're buying will appreciate in value, making them rich in the future. The product grows more and more elaborate and more expensive, but the expense is offset by cheap credit provided by sellers who are eager to encourage buyers to buy. Buyers see that everyone else is taking on mounds of debt, and they're more comfortable when they do so themselves. Besides, for a generation, the value of what they buy has gone up steadily. What could go wrong? Everything continues smoothly until at some point it doesn't anymore. Yes, this sounds like the housing bubble, but I'm afraid it's also sounding a lot like the still inflating higher education bubble. College is getting more expensive, a lot more expensive. At an annual growth rate of 7.4% a year, tuition has vastly outstripped the consumer price index of 3.8%. It's skyrocketed past spiraling healthcare increases of 5.8%. Even the housing bubble at its runaway peak pales in comparison. Now, consumers would balk, except that, as with the housing bubble, cheap and readily available credit has let people borrow huge amounts of money to finance education, and both students and parents continue to believe that whatever the cost, a college education is a necessary ticket to future prosperity. But is it? Well, meet Courtney Muna, a 26-year-old graduate of New York University, recently reported by the New York Times to have nearly $100,000 in student loan debt, debt that her degree in religious and women's studies did not equip her with the actual job skills to repay. Payments on Courtney's debt are about $700 per month, equivalent to a respectable house payment and a major bite on her monthly income of $100 as a photographer's assistant earning an hourly wage. And unlike a bad mortgage on an underwater house, Courtney can't simply walk away from her student loans, which cannot be expunged in bankruptcy. She's stuck in a financial trap, and she's not alone. You know, even students who major in programs shown to increase earnings, like engineering, face limits on how much debt they can sanely amass, and with costs approaching $60,000 a year for many private schools and $30,000 for state schools, 6-figure student loan debt is fast becoming the norm.
Now, the consequences of such high prices of education are that some people are actually delaying marriage or resigning from marriage altogether. Now, this is not the only problem. This is not the only problem, because other people also resign from home ownership. They cannot go take a mortgage and take a loan to buy a house because they have such a huge student debt. So the student debt is, in the United States, is over $1 trillion. I don't know what the exact number is right now, but it's, I think, close to $2 trillion right now. And the student debt is bigger than the auto debt and credit card debt. So and the credit card debt in the United States is a big thing. So it's a huge problem. Now, and the author also says that there are some problems with higher education achievements. So people who go to college, they don't, after examination has been conducted, it turns out that after that research that not many people actually, I mean, there's a huge percentage of people who don't benefit that much from higher education. So the conclusion of the story number one is that people are getting hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt to go to United States colleges, and sometimes they're not really getting that much value out of their education, which of course is a problem. So in the second video, we're going to see what other problems there are with American universities. We're going to listen to an interview with an expert in the topic, and we'll see what is wrong with the United States universities.
Now, for many, the debt is enough to quash marriage plans. I mean, who wants to marry someone with huge amounts of unpayable debt? It's enough to prevent home ownership and generally wreak havoc on the debtors' lives. In fact, total student loan debt in America has passed the $1 trillion mark, more than total credit card debt and more than total auto loan debt. But as prices have been going up, learning seems to have been going down. A recent book, Academically Adrift by Richard Aram and Josipa Roska, found that 45% of students did not demonstrate any significant improvement in learning during the first 2 years of college, and 36% of students did not demonstrate any significant improvement in learning over 4 years of college. The primary reason, according to the study, is that courses aren't very rigorous. In fact, a recent survey of more than 700 schools by the American Council of Trustees and Alumni found that many have virtually no requirements. Perhaps that's why students are studying 50% less than they were a couple of decades ago. And all of this is happening even as millions of people with college educations can't find jobs. Today, many graduates are already jumping the tracks to become skilled manual laborers, plumbers, electricians, and the like. The Bureau of Labor Statistics predicts that 7 of the 10 fastest growing jobs in the next decade will be based on on-the-job training rather than higher education. And they'll be hands-on jobs that are hard to outsource to foreigners. If you want your toilet fixed, it can't be done by somebody in Bangalore. People pursuing these careers will have greater job security in today's economy and will be free from the crushing debt amassed by their more educated peers. Bubbles form when too many people expect values to go up forever. Simply put, the cost of higher education has far outpaced its actual value. The bubble is going to burst.
So the story number 2 is delving deeper into the problems that are right now plaguing United States universities, and to be more precise, the interview focuses on Harvard and Yale, so the very top of the Ivy League universities, and delves also deeper into the problem of political correctness, which has been something of a phenomenon also very typical to the United States and the Western culture and Western universities in general, which hasn't really affected Poland that much. So to get an outside perspective on it, we're going to listen to the interview. Now, who is the person who is being interviewed? Peter Thiel is a very famous investor. He's a thinker. He's the first person who invested in Facebook, and he invented PayPal. So he's rich, successful, and has a lot of interesting opinions. Now, in the beginning, he mentions that universities, you're going to listen to this interview and see that he mentions that universities have gotten worse in the last decades, that some people just say that these top universities have value, and that's why they have value. It's just like people who are famous because they are famous. The interviewer even goes as far as to call the top US colleges political correct asylums, so where political correctness is really the norm and people get offended by everything, and you don't really have much free speech. Now, and to give you another perspective on this idea of political correctness going mad in the United States universities, is the article that the Telegraph published of John Cleese, who's one of the stars of Monty Python, who said that he will no longer perform at United States universities because political correctness have killed comedy. And so he decided that this is simply not what he wants to do anymore. So there you go. Now, Peter also goes on to say that Ivy League universities are like the Studio 54 nightclubs, which, if you don't know, it was a very famous nightclub back in the days. And they are good for your social status. So very rich people went to this Studio 54 nightclub, but it was bad for your morals. So he draws a comparison between nightclubs and exclusive places like that and United States colleges. So let's listen and hear Peter actually express his opinions.